Hi.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Okay. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. So is Nancy there?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Let's just chat.
Good morning from your friends at the Greater Valley Chamber of Commerce in Shelton, Connecticut. These past few months, we found creative ways to stay connected, and most of our meetings have been through virtual meetings through Zoom. So today we thought it would be a great idea to present on what not to do on Zoom as the presenter, because we've noticed a lot of ways that ourselves and others can improve. And that's what we are doing this morning, collecting and discussing ways that we could all, even us, get better.
Right.
So my name is Laura Gorman. I'm the membership director for the Greater Valley Chamber of Commerce. And with us today, we have Anna D. Simone. She's an intern at Southern Connecticut State University, rising senior, a journalism major. And she's been helping us with our chamber blog, doing a great job. She's a great writer. Thank you, Anna. We wouldn't have time for that if you weren't available to us.
My pleasure.
We also have one of our chamber member and friends, Monica Leggett. Monica is a life coach. Her business is New Steps Life Coaching. She is here this morning. Monica has been using Zoom before many of us have, and we found that she was ahead of the game. So we turned to Monica. We also call her the Zoom Whisperer. We turned to her to say, help us as we found our way through using Zoom. So,
and I'm still learning things every day.
Right, you are.
Yes. I am, yeah, by no means I am not 100% expert, but I'm ahead of the curve, I think. So that's good.
And lastly, we have Nancie Gray. She's a vice president, marketing and communications with me, my associate, Greater Valley Chamber of Commerce, and she is here as well to help guide us and help us through this seminar and how we could improve on Zoom. So.
And I'm actually going to pop in very quickly and apologize. Yeah. You're going to see me doing a no-go on Zoom, but I'm also running our Facebook Live here. So I'm going to be answering any questions that people may have or sharing questions with anybody that may have. So look forward to chatting with you all.
Yeah, and I'm looking down just to make sure I can see what we see on the screen. So it's a little nerve-wracking to do a Zoom meeting and then have it on live and have it on two different places. And one of the biggest things about today that I think that we've all realized is that it's really hard to be the host, the presenter, the slide, producer, if you will, and monitor things like Facebook Live at the same time. It's really hard. So it takes a village.
It does.
So if you're a presenter, get a village, get an intern, get a colleague who maybe you can help them with theirs and you can help them with yours or something like that. So it can be distracting when you're trying to do too many things at once. So, Laura, do you want me to sort of introduce the topic and sort of get going? We've had a couple chats about this, and we put together a list of do's and don'ts, and we wanted to first start talking about appearance, and anything from obviously dress professionally. Would you like to show the no t-shirt, Nancie?
I really wanted to wear this because it was so appropriate, but I know I'm not supposed to wear a t-shirt, but no, today. Oh, yeah. Well, next time.
Yeah, so you want to be careful of what you're wearing. You also want to be careful about trying to talk into the camera. Laura's on a iPad today because so show us what your search for where was looking at the camera.
right now I'm looking at you, but
Yeah.
I know I'm not, I need to be looking right there, as I understand it. And that is not comfortable for me, but I have to do my best to go to a certain part of my iPad
Right.
to look straight on. So, again, it's preparation.
Right.
Sometimes I'm on my iPad, sometimes I'm on my desktop, my laptop, and you have to give yourself some time before you get on prepare.
Yeah, and sometimes we get the up the nose angle because someone has propped up their phone or their whatever iPad in front of you on the table, and you
Sometimes I've seen people like that.
right, be on
Yes.
camera. It's also important to monitor your microphone because I've noticed. Some people, their microphone isn't really good quality, and especially if you're the presenter, you want to have a good quality microphone. The microphone on your laptop may not be the best. You can get, I have one right now. I'm using one by Fifine Technology. Anyway, it's a lavalier kind of microphone, and I could be presenting and walking around the room, and it would still catch and record. So. There's a feedback issue to be aware of as well. Sometimes people are presenting, they're on their laptop, but they also have their phone that's linked in as well, and you'll get pretty bad feedback issues. So I know there have been a few meetings where we've had to ask people to mute.
Use their phone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it messes up for everybody. When one person is on with both a laptop and their own phone, it can mess it up for everybody.
And I think too, not just with a laptop and phone, but sometimes people aren't using headphones and a mic, and they get feedback from their laptop speakers that come into play. So it's best if you can to just be on mute unless you're actually speaking.
Yeah. And you can get a free Zoom account, and you can record and test and play back and play around with it. So there's really there's no reason why you can't be well prepared. So we've talked about the camera angle, maybe a little bit about lighting. I finally saw what one of those rings looks like. It's a ring of light with a holder for your phone in the middle. And for some people, if they're facing against the wall at their desk or something, they need that extra light. So lighting.
And I know that my lighting is not the best today because of where the angle of the sun is and coming into my room today.
Yeah.
And so, it's funny for me, later in the afternoon is actually my best light in my room.
Yeah.
So that's
I've noticed the same thing for me. It's a little, it's still early in the day, so the sun hasn't come up high enough. When there are times that I have to do some recordings, like I'm, creating a webinar for a client or something, I wait until the afternoon because that is my best light.
And I think too, another important thing is, even though it's working for Laura, having that window behind you typically does not work.
Right. Yeah. I think
Laura's
she's far enough away.
I think she's far enough away so it does work.
Yeah. But the background's important. Share who's in your background, Nancie.
I don't know. Oh, you want to see who's in my today? Today in my background is Fiona and friends, my grandkids' babies, and their big paper flower and so on. Right. My better background is actually on this side with the chamber banner, the bookshelves, and so on. But they like hanging out in the meetings.
It's very neat.
I did do that at least. They normally are quite that neat.
I think anybody who's been watching cable news has seen every setting possible, and you see what works and what doesn't work. But there's also the option of putting in a background. I'll choose one of my virtual backgrounds really quick, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the quality of your camera.
I can help with that, Monica.
Oh, please do.
Everybody loves this. I am the Valley.
Yes,
I am the Valley. I've been there for long enough now. I've become the Valley.
And And the reason why this is happening to Nancie is probably more about her computer than anything else, right? When your computer, I don't know if they're older or they don't have a certain quality level of
Certain
camera.
type of camera that doesn't have an automatic green screen.
Yeah.
If you don't have an automatic green screen with your camera and you don't want to have this in your background,
Right.
you can even get a green or a certain shade of blue tarp and put that behind you and use one of those virtual backgrounds and it should work.
Right.
It's a good example of why you should check it before the meeting.
Absolutely. I get a kick out of, that sometimes we have our BBN meetings or other group meetings I've been in on, and you'll see someone with a virtual background, and they'll be there, and then they'll get up and they'll leave, and it's like they're going into the mist. Their picture disappear.
Or you'll see an arm appear.
Yeah. It's really,
from out of the mist when somebody walks by.
But, when you're meeting as a group with a bunch of friends and it's not all professional, this isn't as important. But certainly when you are the presenter, you want to make sure that you've got all the right levels of things. Yeah. So let's talk about etiquette really quick. Thank you for inviting me to be part of today's Facebook Live event.
You're so welcome, Monica. We're glad to have you on today's show.
And I noticed that I didn't see it till yesterday, I think, but you created an event on Facebook, and then you invited me to be a co-host, which I didn't even realize you could do. So that was very nice of you to do that. It's presented by New Steps Life Coaching and the Greater Valley Chamber. I know that when I've presented, if I've been invited to present to a group, I always thank whoever has invited me to be there. And then just remember that you're being a representative of that organization. You want to look professional and act professional. And you also want to leave proper time for Q&A, which we don't. Oh, speaking of Q&A, Nancie, have you?
There's a few hellos, everybody.
Okay.
Hi, we have several people watching. So hi, everybody who's actually watching us this morning. We're glad to have you.
Can you show the screen of what you're seeing on the phone?
So this is what I'm seeing on my phone. I hope it's not reflecting too badly for people, but I'm seeing.
So you're seeing all four of us.
Yep, seeing all four people.
Uh-huh.
And then also the comments. There's lots of hellos. And lots of people watching.
Great.
So we're excited about that.
Great.
Although it's interesting for me because it's the delay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was something that we learned also with practice, is that when Nancie, because as the host, to do Facebook Live from Zoom, number one, you have to have turned it on in your Zoom account that you can record. You can go to Facebook or you can go to YouTube, and then it's always there. So whenever you're on, you could make it a Facebook Live presentation, but it's always on a little bit of a time delay.
Yes.
So it's a little unnerving. You often see people who start a Facebook Live and they can't tell whether it has started recording or not. And yeah, I think it even happened to us this morning.
We actually said this morning what I ended up doing, because I was setting us up, I put myself on no video and mute while I went in to set up. So that way, when I knew that we were actually live, when I saw it on my phone, then I came back.
Yeah. And it didn't actually show up on our Zoom icon until after we got the text that you said that we were live. So there was a little bit of a delay on there. So just, it's really good to practice.
Yes, that makes perfect.
Exactly. And proper time for Q&A. I think part of the etiquette of being a presenter also is knowing how much time you have. So if you're given 20 minutes, don't create a presentation that's going to take an hour and then try to rush through the last 2/3 of it, and try to leave a little time for Q&A or build it into your presentation. So I don't know that there would be any questions on etiquette, but there have always been questions about how do you get that virtual background, or how do you
although I do have to say another piece of that, and I'm not sure if it falls under etiquette or appearance, is we were talking earlier, when you are doing the presentations, make sure that you're on video. Don't stop your video as a presenter, because I want to see you. Just like if you're on stage and in front of me at a live event, I want to see you doing your presentation. And the other thing is, don't do this. Please don't do this when you're doing your presentation, looking at either your other computer screen or your
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
Look at the screen with the camera.
Yeah.
Try and have it set up so that if you really need those notes, that they're in view, so that just like if you were doing a live presentation.
Yeah. I'll give you a little tip of what I'm doing right now. I only have a laptop. I don't have a second screen or whatever, and I don't want to have anything down here on my phone. So I opened up a file that has all of the lists that we talked about that we were going to cover today. And then when I opened up the Zoom meeting, I only have it on sort of a half screen. It's not full screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see us, and I'm looking a little to the right because I tend to want to look at you guys. But then I'm also have my notes right next to me. So
Yeah.
my eyes are not doing anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much straight ahead. So there are ways, tricks to learn in terms of being able to see both things.
I've also found too, another thing that's a secret for me, and today it's a little difficult for me. So if you see my eyes wandering, not just down to my phone, but around the screen, I've typically, instead of setting it for gallery view, I set it for speaker view. That enables me to look in the right place on my computer and laptop to be looking at you versus looking around the room and you're not really seeing me looking at you, which is very important, because that's one of the things with Zoom and online is you need that connection. And through that, looking at people, you get a better connection.
Yeah. So eye contact, that's good. So our next topic is about preparation. And so we've talked about know the platform. If you don't know Zoom and you're really having trouble, I've actually started helping some of my clients because they would normally meet in person, and now they're changing their whole way of doing business and turning it into virtual. And how do I send a Zoom invite? And how do I, all of these things. So try to get to know your platform and think about ways in your presentation that you can engage participants. Normally, not in Facebook Live, presented on, we would have people in the room, and if anybody wanted to ask a question, they would put something in the chat box. Could anyone who's listening right now please put a question in the box on Facebook Live, and Nancie will watch for some questions. I wanted to do a don't for a moment here. I'm going to share my screen. And one of the things that people struggle with is, first of all, they can't find the presentation they want to use. And I know it's here somewhere, but I can't find it. And they're taking forever, right? And the joke is I can't find it. No, it's right here. So now I'm sharing my screen, and
there's your notes.
Yeah. Oh, I shared the whole screen. That's the worst thing. You don't want to share your whole screen, because now you're seeing my notes and you're seeing the laptop and everything. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And here's my Zoom like a pro. So now you're just seeing my actual PowerPoint. But you're not seeing it from the first page. You're seeing it from maybe where I left off when I was rehearsing. This is a slide that has way too many words. So I'm going to, I could fumble all the way through and get to the first slide, but what you're seeing is my notes on the side as well. You're seeing my deck, and you don't want people to see the deck. You want them to see this. So what I've learned is that when I am rehearsing before I go on, so let's say Nancie's the host, I'm the guest presenter, I practice lining up my PowerPoint. And then when I stop sharing, it's already full screen. And then when I go back into it, I'll show you. If I stop sharing and now I go to share it again, it's already in full screen and I don't have to fumble with it. And then I can go through it. And like this would be an example of a slide that is catchy. It's icons. One thing I've noticed though is that, I don't know about for you guys, the little face icons to the right block my picture all the way on the right. Do you guys notice that?
I don't notice that. For me,
Okay.
I'm seeing the full
Okay.
presentation and 4
You
headshots
see
to the
4
side.
icons. Yeah. So how does Zoom make you feel? You know, frustrated, overwhelmed, maybe a chance to network, or I am the presenter and I'm empowered. So anyway, I just wanted to, I did want to talk about the fact that and now of course I don't have
Practice and
Practice
your
ahead. One of the
yeah.
presentation.
I was gonna say, one of the things that we try and do too is if you're doing a presentation with us, we'll get on a little bit earlier with you so that
Yeah.
you can preset all of that, unshare your screen, have our networking portion so it's looking a little bit more like this,
Yeah.
and then go back to your shared screen.
Yeah. And then it's easy to share it.
Mhm.
Also, something to watch out for when you're screen sharing is making sure you don't have any inappropriate tabs or pictures on your desktop or anything.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
Very
you
true.
really don't want to share your whole desktop. What you do want to do is you want to have anything that you want to share open
Mhm.
Mhm.
and try to eliminate a bunch of else, because when you open up share, everything that is open will be there, you know, every file, and it
Right.
can be distracting to try to find it.
Mhm.
But we also learned something in just necessity. Somebody was sharing a file and then wanted to share another file. And rather than stop sharing, you hover at the top there and all of a sudden there's a new share. So you can flip from sharing one file to sharing another file to sharing another file and not ever have like the whole desktop showing.
Yeah, and I think too, another piece is have it set, if you can, really try and have whatever you're sharing on screen set up in a PowerPoint type program. Don't open and close Word documents.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely
Make
not
sure
the
you
best
have
way to do
everything set and ready to go. It's so important. Just again, going back to being on Zoom is just like being in a room presenting live. You want to come across prepared and ready to go.
Yeah. So a couple notes. Anna, you want to talk about gifts? Because that
Yes.
was your idea.
So in my college experience, I've had a lot of professors tell me that having like too much movement in like presentations, like GIFs or like even like videos that, you know, just keep replaying, they can be distracting. And oftentimes your audience will just like keep staring at that rather than paying attention to you. So try to avoid that. But images in general, I think, are good, and graphs. People like to see, especially like visual learners, like to see graphics there, and I think they look really good when they accompany your presentation.
Yeah. And one tricky thing that some people have learned is that if you have a video embedded in your PowerPoint, when you go to share your screen and share your PowerPoint, there is a box to check off that says something to the effect of sharing the video, the sound from your PowerPoint. You have to check that box off, or when you go to play the video, there won't be any sound. So watch for that. Couple of notes I had. Make sure that there is a co-host. So Nancie, you opened up the Zoom meeting.
Yes.
And then you proceeded to you made me a co-host so that I could share my screen first.
Correct.
Which you can also find in the security badge at the bottom. You can allow people to share their screen without making them a co-host. And if Nancie's power went out right now, the fact that there is a co-host means that the meeting can continue without a loss, you know. And to that same point, if you share your slide deck with whoever the host is, then if anything happens to you and your connection goes down, you can always phone back in and they'll have the PowerPoint slides, and it might be a couple minutes of fumbling, but it is something, it definitely falls into the lines of preparation for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, a little extra preparation this way.
Yeah. What else?
To go off, one other thing I know we mentioned was when we're chatting with each other in the chat box.
Yeah.
The chat box gets saved.
Yeah.
And the question was, and I can't remember the answer, if I'm sending a private message to one person, when it's saved, is that private message show up?
That private message does show up. We actually did a test the last time because we were wondering about that.
Yeah.
So if you're private messaging people, be careful what you're private messaging, because it does show up to the host in the saved chat.
Right. To the host, but not
To the
to
host,
anybody else.
not to anybody else. Like nobody else will see it, but
Yeah.
your host will see any comments or anything that are being said in that chat area.
Right, but often someone will include their website or other information for everyone in the chat. And so the chat is meant to be shared in that case. And so
Yeah.
that's why it's definitely important to make sure that you keep everything professional. You think
Yeah.
you're private, it's not really private.
Right, right.
It's
we
not
did-
staying in Vegas.
We, yeah. We did learn that the chat box being available to everybody is a setting that you can have on and off. It somehow got turned off for the chamber. And we were in a chamber meeting and we couldn't save the chat. And we didn't know why, and it had to do with one of the settings. So there's a lot of settings in Zoom. And obviously we know about now with having a password, we know about having a waiting room. So that's another thing. If you're a presenter, if I'm a guest with your organization and you have to admit people into the room, you have to monitor the chat, you might be asked to run the slideshow, it can be pretty overwhelming. So be careful of, and I love running polls. So when I'm a presenter, I love to have polls, but I know how to do it. So I can always run my own poll and you can worry about all the other things. So, okay. So we've talked about preparation, the PowerPoint slides, don't be too wordy, no GIFs, know how to turn on videos, know how to share your screen and pull up the right thing. With PowerPoint, there are tabs and, it's usually on the home tab because you're adding things to it and whatever, but there is a slideshow preparation or slideshow tab. You want it to be on the slideshow tab.
Yes.
And then there's that little icon on the bottom to make it a full screen. So presentation, we've talked a little bit about not reading from over here, but we also, you don't want to have slides that are so wordy you're just reading word for word.
Exactly.
I still have a hard time. I will be quite honest. I have a hard time keeping things out of a presentation. It's certainly easier for me to have all the words in there, but I learned something recently at another presentation that our brain can only process, we're limited. So visually we see it. And then if I'm also reading what's on the slide and I'm hearing the presenter read or talk, it doesn't process well. So if you can use the icons, I found this actual presenter shared a website. It's called the Noun Project, Noun, N-O-U-N. And that's where I found some of those icons that I showed earlier. So if you can find ways to bring icons into your, pictures or something like that into your presentation.
Right, have an image or a picture, and then your words are going along with that image or picture.
Right.
Because, even if whether it's on Zoom or in person, you really shouldn't be just standing there reading what they could read too. So it's, maybe it's just bullets. And then you go into it more. So, right.
And you can always still, even with Zoom, you can still offer a handout of some sort that has more meat to it.
Right.
That you can share with the attendees of the meeting, just like you would at a regular meeting. But always do that after, because then people aren't getting ahead of you and reading ahead of you. And
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the classic PowerPoint that people would print off the 3 slides per page with the lines to the right of it, which is great.
Yeah.
But you can have a version that's a handout that doesn't have all the wording in it, and they're just writing some notes. And you could also have a version that has all the information, or a version of a handout that has some of the information. You don't want to give them everything, but
just stick to the main ideas.
the main ideas.
That's important.
So,
I just thought of something that we
Yeah,
hadn't discussed.
okay.
And that's your movements of your hands.
Hmm.
People don't think about, when you're talking, you're using your hands, but
Do
yeah,
that.
don't do what Laura's doing. Don't 3D us. It can be kind of scary.
Yeah.
But I think that's something important for people to remember too is, we do have a tendency to use our hand gestures. But you do need to animate yourself when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. I wouldn't say don't use your hands, but
right.
don't have them ever go in front of your face.
Don't have them go in front of your face and don't
Yeah.
go like that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Keep your hand movements, but keep them tighter into you.
Right.
Or and still, and then one thing I learned, which also helps, is over animate your expressions. Almost if you're on a stage,
Mm-hmm.
you instead of everybody always has you're looking around the Zoom and everybody's got that. Seriously, I'm listening to you face. I really am listening. It's okay to smile.
Yeah.
It's okay to over animate that smile because it helps push that through a little bit more to everybody in that meeting.
That's good. So we had just a couple of notes more about presentations. So no reading the slides, keep your notes in eyesight. Have some sort of, I don't know that we really did this very well, but try to have something in the beginning that captures people's attention. I know I did the whole National Speakers Association training, and they say like start with a question or start with a poll. Like how many of you have had to present on Zoom so far? Of course, we didn't really do that because it's just the four of us on camera together. It's a little different, but we could have come up with a good, opening. The middle, if there's rules of three, we didn't really have rules of three, but we had set information we were going to give, and it wasn't overpowering. We're trying to keep this to 30 minutes, and we're right about there. And then have an ending. So if everybody shared maybe one takeaway of what they have felt is a don't do on Zoom, like what's your pet peeve to not do? Anybody have one?
I'm thinking because there's a couple, and I know we've
I'd say
discussed some of them already.
For me, it's definitely about the PowerPoint slides and not knowing how to do that. That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Mine is more about etiquette. They often like snack on like foods and they're like crunchy and they're distracting and then they don't mute themselves. And I just think it's
So that's
disrespectful.
Other participants in the room?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been on several meetings where it is at lunchtime and someone will be not on camera and they're saying, I'm just finishing my lunch. I'll come on camera when I'm done, which is good. That's good etiquette.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
I
Nancie,
think.
did you have any questions? Did anyone send any questions or comments?
No, I was going to say, I was going to ask if anybody had any questions before we wrap it up, but one of mine is actually what just actually happened with Laura and I is that sometimes that interruption, who talks for when and how and who's going to say what. And another secret to Zoom is if you're on a Zoom meeting, you can actually, when you're on mute, because you're trying to keep yourself muted following that etiquette, you can use the space bar to unmute yourself temporarily. And that's something that people don't forget. It doesn't always work. Sometimes I haven't figured out why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's a great way to interact and not have to think, oh, wait, where do I unmute? How do I unmute? You can just use that space bar.
Yeah. That's a Tom Speak tip that we learned.
That is.
Yeah.
We have to give credit where credit is due.
That's right. That's etiquette. Laura, did you have any pet peeve about?
I think it was most of the time I've seen people, as we talked about, looking in different directions or we're looking up their nose or we're looking at the ceiling or they have it on their lap.
Yeah.
And and I think that they don't realize what they look like, and everyone needs to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it all comes down to preparation. It is a bit of a production. And even if you are just a participant in a group setting, it's one thing if it's your family and friends, but if it's a business setting, you should remember that people are seeing you, probably, unless you're off camera, and to be respectful, even if you're not the presenter. And if you're the presenter, like everything we talked about really applies.
I think too, Monica, one of the things that we talked about too was the distract, I apologized early on because I didn't want to be, thinking that I was not being proper etiquette being on my phone.
Yeah.
But, the constant movement of this, show that you're part of the meeting. Yeah. Show that respect to the presenter.
Yeah.
Well.
So I know as far as Zoom goes, you can have a free account. You can have for about $150 a year, you can have a professional account and you can set up your own meetings. You can talk, up to 4 hours. Even before I had my paid one, I was able to make recordings that I've used for years now. So Zoom is a really great platform. I wish I could make money every time I mention them, but I don't. But it really allows you to put a little production house in your own home, So, and I use it for my clients all the time. A little thing as far as the security goes, maybe one last thing I'll mention is that when I set up a Zoom session with a client, I have it generate an individual ID for that person. And then we just make it a recurring and we use that number. So you don't want to be using your Zoom account all the time and then broadcasting it, because that's where I think, some of the hacking comes from and people popping in and whatever. So be careful with your.
To tack on to that, Monica, I actually, this is a big pet peeve of mine because it is a security issue. If you're an area organization, an area company, and you're doing a public presentation on Zoom where you're inviting people to be part of that presentation, don't include the password and the meeting ID in your marketing materials. Have people register for that program in order to get that information. That's one way you can keep your meetings from being Zoom bombed, because it is still happening. And it's really, I know somebody who had that happen to them recently, and it was very devastating for them. It was embarrassing for them. They were devastated because the way that the Zoom bomb happened for them just was completely inappropriate, and especially with their meeting topic.
Oh.
So just keep that in mind. Just keep it private and have people register.
Yeah. So don't want to end on a low note, but Zoom has been fun, and doing live has been fun, and I hope people got something out of it. And if you have any questions, they can always reach out to you guys at the chamber or to me at New Steps Life Coaching. And I've had a lot of fun chatting with you ladies this morning.
We've had a lot of fun chatting with you too, Monica. And Anna, this is your next to last day. And this was an important part of your internship, was to do some sort of video something. So I hope this was good for you as well.
Definitely.
Are you going to be back on campus, or are you going to be a day tripper?
Yes, I'm moving in on Monday.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a nice variety of masks that you can wear so you stay healthy.
They have a great variety, I think, at Tickled Pink Boutique in Seymour.
Yes. Very good.
And the school actually gave us one with like our mascot on it and everything.
Oh, that's
nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think before we wrap up completely, too, we have a few other things happening at the chamber, because I've always got to take that opportunity, people. We have LeaderCast. We are so excited. LeaderCast is coming up. There's a lot of details, so I'm not going to get into everything, but it launches on September 9th. You can sign up for 2 different ways. There's a full 9-week series to watch each of the 9 speakers, and it includes what we call the 4 o'clock Leader Club every Tuesday afternoon. Or you can sign up just for individual speakers. So if you're interested in hearing Magic Johnson, for example, who's one of the speakers, or Andy Stanley, or Dr. Henry Cloud, you can sign up for just that one session, and still be a part of that single 4 o'clock Leader Club. We, of course, have our coffee breaks. They're going to be switching out a little bit with the fall coming in, and we're probably going to be doing them every other week. And one week is going to be a presentation. And the other week, we're going to actually do just a coffee break conversation, almost like our networking groups, but you don't have to be a member of the networking groups to be involved with those. So we're excited about that. They'll have a theme to each one, so watch for that. It'll be a business related theme, or we may throw something a little fun into the works sometime during the line. And don't forget those coffee mugs, those ever important coffee mugs. And we have, what else do we have coming up, Laura? Oh my gosh, I think we're planning a lot for the fall. It's going to be, we're going virtual and going to have a lot going on. But don't forget our networking groups, our councils, they're all meeting virtually. Our healthcare council, our Tide council. If you're interested in those topics, come on in, be a part of those meetings and learn with those folks. There's some great stuff going on. And all of this all gets recorded, all these presentations, and placed on our chamber YouTube channel. So hope to see you around, and thank you all for coming today.
Great job.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.